Job well done, Fuji. What a great camera, mate. Okay, let me be a little bit more serious. My name is Junet. I'm a photographer out of California. And the reason I'm making this video is because the XT-5 actually kind of interests me. The reason it interests me is because I'm an APS-C shooter and the XT-5 is an APS-C camera. And I've kind of been looking to upgrade or sort of add another camera to the arsenal. And the camera I've been waiting for, which is the Sony a7C Mark II, isn't out yet, and we don't really know when it's coming out. So when the XT-5 was announced, I was actually pretty impressed. I was like, wow, those are some nice specs on an APS-C camera. So from some of the reviews I watched, everybody's saying that the XT-5 is like the perfect camera for the photographer. So I want to see if that's true. Is it a worthy upgrade from what I have, which is the Sony a6400? So this video is really just kind of exploring the features between the two, and it's almost like this video is helping me decide. It might help you too. The Sony XT5. Ooh, I should not have said that. The Fujifilm XT5 shoots 40 megapixel photos, and the Sony a6400 shoots 24 megapixel photos. And just on those two numbers alone, yeah, the extra megapixels, it sounds kind of nice, you know, bigger is always better. But the files end up being bigger. And do I actually need 40? See this photo right here? That one was shot with this camera. It was blown up and it looks great. There's also one down there, let me get it. Right here, this is a 16 by 20, looks beautiful. So that sort of raises the question, do I actually need more megapixels? And although it sounds nice, I really don't think I do, because if I'm just going to enlarge my photos into prints, I think 24 megapixels is just enough. So when I go out shooting, I mostly use the EVF, and the Fuji's EVF has 3.69 million dots, and the Sony's is 2.36 million. So you're getting over a million plus more on the XT5, and that might make it look a little bit more crisp. It's probably a little bit bigger, but I don't have a problem with the Sony's EVF. I know a lot of people do, but I don't understand what some of the people are like trying to see through that. It's not your 60-inch TV. It's a little screen in there. It's gonna be small. I feel fine with mine, so I don't think that's a worthy upgrade for me. Now when you're talking about the LCD, both LCDs are 3-inch, so take your pick. I know both of them are probably going to suffer in really bright light outdoors. I know mine does, but I would imagine that's just a common problem amongst all LCDs. Autofocus. I seriously don't understand how Fujifilm just can't make a really nice autofocus system. I know it's good, but hands down, Sony has the best autofocus system, and although both of them have 425 points, I think the Sony's is still going to be a lot better. It still kind of amazes me that when I read that Fuji's now including 425 phase, detection points on their autofocus, that was already present in a camera from, I can't remember when this was made, like 2016 or 17. So Fuji seems to always be behind in the technical specs, which I'm gonna leave it at that. So I know the XT5 has a new sensor, which we haven't really seen because most of them were pre-production models that these other YouTubers got. So they really weren't able to sort of do too much, analysis and crazy things. But again, I think that Sony is the leader in dynamic range. How many times do we have to hear that? As a photographer, it is amazing to have nice dynamic range to recover things like highlights and shadows. I mean, sometimes you screw up a photo, but you can save it because of Sony's dynamic range. And I don't know, I don't think Fuji is quite there yet. But then again, it might not be that much of a big difference, but we don't know with this new sensor, but we'll find out. So since the dynamic range will probably never be as good as the Sony cameras, that doesn't really give me a good reason to upgrade. So as far as IBIS goes, the XT5 has it. It probably has a good one. The a6400 doesn't, but the a6600 does. That's a more expensive camera, of course. But as a photographer, I never really find myself saying, man, I wish I had some IBIS. For the stuff I do, I don't really need it. All my lenses are not stabilized. A6400 is not stabilized. and I've never wished I had IBIS. So on that point, I don't think that's a good reason for me to upgrade. The XT-5 shoots 20 frames per second. The Sony a6400 shoots 11. Again, I sometimes use like the burst mode where I'm shooting that many frames per second, and I've never once said, oh man, I wish I had 9 more frames per second so I would have gotten the shot. No, within those 11 frames, I've gotten the shot. So, or 20 frames, 30 frames, you know, I've always gotten the shot. So I don't really need that extra frames per second. I'm a street photographer. Maybe if you're doing other stuff where there's a lot of action, a lot of motion, that might be beneficial to you. But again, I don't really see that as a big reason to upgrade. The last thing I wanted to talk about was the price. So, for example, this camera, the a6400, you're at $900 just for the body. For the XT-5, you're at $1,700 just for the body. And if you slap on a lens, according to B&H, my favorite website that I'm not sponsored by, with the 18 to 55, you are at $2,100, my friend. With tax, maybe 22. That's a lot of money for an APS-C. APS-C, not full frame. I have an APS-C, so it's not like I'm even sticking up for full frame, but dude, you can get a used A7 IV, all right, full frame with way better specs than the XT-5, which is their, somewhat flagship camera, for like $1,900 or $2,000 just for the body used, all right? And then you slap on a lens like the one I'm using, the Samyang 24mm, and that's $200, and that's a full frame lens. Basically the same price, 22 and 22, but I got a full frame with a nice prime, and then you have this APS-C, which is pretty good. Now, that's a whole nother debate I'm not gonna get into, but I'm just giving you an idea of what else you could possibly get for the same amount of money. Therefore, I think the XT-5 is a little pricey. I think it could be a little bit cheaper. I guess when I saw, some videos on the XT-5 and I read up about it, I think what intrigued me was the video capabilities. They're actually pretty darn good for an APS-C camera. I mean, 10-bit 422 with like 8K, dude, that's solid. And IBIS, like, that's a pretty solid hybrid setup. The Sony a6400 shoots downsampled 6K to 4K. It has no IBIS and it shoots 420 8-bit. So there's a lot more sort of dynamic range and color that you're gonna get out of the Fuji and stabilization that I'm not gonna be able to get in this camera. And I kind of wish this camera had better specs in terms of video. I think in that regard, I would upgrade to the XT-5 with, the benefits of some of the photo capabilities that it has that are just slightly better than the a6400. Obviously not the autofocus and dynamic range, but to get some of those extra video capabilities, in my opinion, I think that's definitely worth upgrading for. But if you only shoot photos and you think you'll never, ever, ever shoot any video, then it's not worth upgrading. Dun, dun, dun. The answer to the question that you've been thinking this entire time. Am I gonna upgrade? I'm sorry, I don't think it's worth upgrading for. I'm waiting for another camera, the A7C Mark II. I think that is gonna be the camera of all time, especially if it's like an A7 IV in an A7C body. Dude, I'll be on that right away. So those are my thoughts on the XT-5. I hope I didn't break too many Fuji hearts out there. I'm sorry guys. I have nothing against Fuji, but I don't think it's time to upgrade. I really like it. I really do like it. And I really could have seen myself buying it. If you're a subscriber to this channel, or you're not but you watch my videos and you like this style of video where I kind of look at other cameras or other gear and whether it's worth it or not, let me know. I'll make more of these. But if you got anything out of this video, anything beneficial, please smack the heck out of that like button. I'm not encouraging violence, but just you know what to do. And if you like me, or if you've seen my other videos and you like my content, definitely hit subscribe. Thanks again so much for watching, guys. Really do appreciate you. See you in the next one.